Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of YHB TV, your handmade business television with Academy of Handmade. I'm Sharon Fain, the founder and director of Handmade. You might notice that this looks a little different than normal. My partner in crime, Isaac, is not here with me. He has been traveling in Europe this week. I know, very fancy. And he was actually unable to make it tonight. So we're bummed to not have him. So I will try to do my best to keep you informed and entertained all at the same time here. If you are just joining us, let us know that you're here in the chat. Let us know what you make and also where you're from. We'd love to get to know all about you. Today, we are excited to talk to you about your ideal wholesale customer, which is a little bit different than maybe your actual ideal customer. So just sort of thinking through the difference in that. Hi, Rochelle. Rochelle's in here. So we're thinking about your ideal wholesale customer today. If you've missed any of our March YHB TVs, never fear, you are signed up for all of them. So there are actually 5 Thursdays in March. So we're going to have a bonus one next week. But the other ones we did last week, we talked about surprise press and how to maximize it. The week before that, we talked about how to have awesome line sheets. And then before that, we talked about working with a printer. If you want to watch any of those, the replays are available. If you just go above my head here, you can see all of them will pull down on the schedule. But don't do that yet. Wait until after this is done so that you don't get yanked away into another video and you can be here live. So I see a few more people are in here talking. Jeannie's here. Beth is from Southern California and she makes jewelry. Welcome, you guys. Awesome. So glad that you guys are here. We're talking about ideal wholesale customer today. If you guys want to add in any questions about wholesale or the ideal wholesale customer concept, let me know. Isaac, this was actually conceived by Isaac, so I am going to do my best to dispense advice on his behalf. So I apologize in advance if I am not as knowledgeable about wholesale as Isaac is, but we will tackle this today. So I'm pretty excited about jumping into this. All right, let's go ahead and start chatting about this a little as people start to come in. So basically this whole thing about the ideal wholesale customer came into our mind when Isaac and I were discussing that maybe thinking about your ideal customer is helpful for you when you're doing direct to consumer, but it's not always a useful avatar when you're doing wholesale. And that's because the wholesale shop can look so much different than who your ideal customer is. And those things don't always align super neatly. There's definitely a Venn diagram of overlap, but there's not always quite the same look there. You can really niche down when you do an ideal customer avatar, but when you're doing a shop, it is both a little bit more broad and sort of conceptual. So that's kind of how we got to talking about this. If you have any thoughts on it, again, let me know in the chat, or if you've conceived of this. So first of all, let's talk about ideal customer avatar or profile. That's what a lot of people will usually call them. If you just search that in like ideal customer profile handmade, you'll get a bunch of stuff out there. You know, like Tara Swigert talks about it. Carrie Chapin has talked about it. There's lots of blog posts on that. So that's definitely something, if you haven't done that yet, to investigate and think about. But a lot of that includes what you would call like demographic details, like gender and income and where they live. So that's like demographic, and then like psychographic details, such as like, what do they do for fun? What would they do on the weekend? What does their home look like? What makes them feel special? What do they worry about? Like those things are psychographic things. So ideal customer profiles are usually a combination of those two things. But when you get into the ideal wholesale customer, which is basically ideal wholesale customer is like, what does your ideal retail shop look like? That starts to get a little bit different. And I think this is good to think through because, you know, we talk with so many shop owners and they're always like sort of dispensing and giving us advice about what it looks like to have, you know, a relationship with maker. And a lot of them, you know, have to mention that, like, you know, we get a lot of the wrong fit coming in here, and it has nothing to do with the maker and how lovely they are. It has a lot to do with basically shops today are now sort of these very like curated environments and curated experiences, right? Like the whole point of sort of going into a shop now, whereas, you know, just going on Amazon, it's very like utilitarian, or somebody just going to your website and like knowing exactly what they want. That is a different experience. But if you're going out in the world to shop, you have a, you're sort of doing it with like an experience that happens. So they're trying to curate these experiences for you. So you have to start thinking about your brand in terms of, you know, what experience is it part of. So here are some things that Isaac and I kind of came up with that has to do with this. So a lot of times with, I guess this is point number one, a lot of times with thinking about your ideal customer, you will think about income, right? And that makes sense. Like, can they afford this? When you're thinking about the ideal wholesale shop, retail shop to wholesale at, you're wanting to think about price. And so what are the typical pricing of store items? And are they similar to what you charge? I know a shop owner who has let us know that she basically cannot sell any jewelry that's over $35 in her shop, just because of the kind of neighborhood it's in and the kind of people that come by. And so that's super important if you're selling jewelry to know, you know, do you have anything that's under that price point that she could sell? So that is, I think, a super like important thing to consider. That's not just, there are definitely boutiques, especially like in Los Angeles, where stuff costs way more than that. And you have to figure out those boutiques and places to be in. And oftentimes you can sort of like research a little bit online too, or just even if you go in there to like check out the shop beforehand, what that's like. Jeannie says, yeah, that's pretty typical about not being able to sell jewelry over $35. Yeah, and I think that's especially hard too when you consider, you know, the competition when you have like Forever 21s and things like that with really super cheap jewelry. So it makes sense that that's what shops have to kind of, you know, put their price range in. Another thing to think about is what brands do they carry that are complementary to your brand? So this has to do with if you're thinking about, you know, the customer as like, what else is happening in their lifestyle? What other brands are they using? This is a similar thing, right? Like what other types of brands would they use? And so that doesn't mean that if you say you sell candles and the shop already has candles in there, that you can't also still be another candle line that they carry. But you want to consider the entire lineup of products that they have and would what you have like fill a niche that's not there. So if they have a candle brand that is, you know, maybe like a $40 or $50 candle, and you're coming in at a, you know, a $15 candle, but you have the same aesthetic as that, then that is definitely something that the shop can think like, okay, we definitely already have these candles, but these are another kind of complementary candles. So thinking about what other brands are out there that your brand would also complement, if that makes sense. Another one has payment in terms that you'll accept. So this one's super unique to wholesale, I think. But basically a lot of thinking about your ideal wholesale customer should be you saying, this is how I want payment, basically, and this is my ideal situation for payment, and trying to not go after shops that don't have that. I know a lot of makers are not into consignment at all, or will do consignment only under certain conditions. So really understand what that is for you, so that you are approaching shops with that knowledge and understanding what sort of terms that they have. If they want to do a net 30 and you're not into a net 30, then you don't have to. So it's definitely one of those things where I feel like there's obviously payment negotiation that happens in wholesale differently than, most of the time somebody isn't asking, you online for a lower price or to pay differently than what you've explicitly said. Sometimes they will. But with wholesale, that's obviously varies a lot from shop to shop. So for you get to set those terms just the way, you get to set it on Etsy, the way you get to set it in your own online shop. Dawn says that she's written up her own terms, and that is great. That is perfect. Just because somebody wants to carry your stuff, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good deal to you if it's going to be too much of a headache, in terms of just your paperwork flow or how you keep inventory or whatever it sort of might mess up for you. Another thing, and we kind of mentioned this a little, but does their shop brand aesthetic match your brand aesthetic? So, and just even what kinds of lines they carry, like does it even make sense? For instance, here in Los Angeles, there's a store called the LA County store. It only has independent goods, I think, that are made in Los Angeles. But in Los Angeles County. So, people who don't sell stuff made in Los Angeles shouldn't probably pitch to them. So figuring out but on the opposite of that, you might have stuff that's more niche, that might make sense for certain kinds of stores and not others. There's stores that only sell, stuff for men. If you don't have a unisex candle and your candles are maybe very girly, I'm going back to these candle examples, then maybe you kind of, push that aside. So really understanding that aesthetic. And then another thing is that your target wholesale customer can change depending on which products or lines you are selling. This is, this was an Isaac, Isaac example. He mentioned that he knows a maker who she has a line of jewelry, and that one of the items includes cufflinks, and that there's definitely a shop that he knows of called Boys Fort in the Portland area that will carry just this one maker's cufflinks and will not carry the rest of it, obviously. So sometimes you have to think about, like, just because there's one product or maybe part of your line that isn't right for a shop doesn't mean that you can't still pitch to that shop, and just being very intentional about letting that shop know, this is the stuff that I think is good for you, obviously, that I want to sell, that I would like to sell to you. And you don't have to bring in the rest of everything else with them. What lifestyle is the shop trying to fit into? Just because they carry baby items and you make baby items doesn't automatically mean that will be a fit. Are they catering to locals or tourists? That will also influence what the shop will carry. Oftentimes tourists are not, wanting large home goods. They're wanting things that are from the area that kind of like speak to it. So if you sell things that are like shapes of states, that obviously can go into something that's a little bit more touristy than possibly other places. So thinking about that. And then do not follow the path of least resistance between your customer and buyer. Sometimes you need to take a step sideways or think differently about how your product is being sold and in what context. So we had this example from Holly in our Facebook group, and Holly sells baby and kids items. And she said, I figured out this the hard way. I was pitching to baby stores and barely making any progress adding new stockists. And when I gained a new stockist, Reorders were rare. However, gift shops featuring fun, quirky, colorful goods, which happen to have a kids' baby section, love my line, and I've developed some great relationships with that type of store owner, which makes sense. Gift givers resonate more with the items I sell at wholesale, while parents tend to buy the items I don't wholesale: crib sheets, nursing pillow covers, etc. So she is kind of selling gift baby accessories that aren't probably the kind of like commodity type items that parents themselves would be buying. So Holly realized that boutiques that had kids lines in them were, an aunt or a friend of the mom is shopping and buying for the baby probably resonates, more than a place where moms are going specifically just to grab and get whatever. So, all right. Do we have any questions? I feel like I rushed through that a little. I did not have Isaac here to slow me down or, add his thoughts to this. But do you guys have any questions on this? If you're in our Facebook group, I did post a link that I thought was super helpful. I will try to dig it up after this and give it to you guys. But basically, it is talking about things to think about your ideal wholesale customer or ideal customer too, and like working with and pitching wholesale shops. So I think that's definitely something, if you haven't yet, look in the Facebook group for. Aaron says, let me move this over to the question area. Aaron asks, what is a reasonable amount of time to wait between pitching to them and following back up for an order? Okay, so you're asking if this is the first time you're ever approaching a shop? Is that it? Yes, okay. I kind of feel like it's with anything else. You want to give everyone enough of a reasonable amount of time that they will have looked through their emails. You should assume that there are other urgent, pressing emails that they've had in their life that week. And so probably at least a week before following back up, probably between a week and 2 weeks before you come back to them again. That is probably what I would do. So I would probably give them, if you pitch to them on Monday, I would think a reasonable amount of time for them to have probably, maybe looked at it. Like it could be the kind of shop where like Fridays is the day they go through all of the catalogs and cards that they've gotten for the week, and they maybe file them away and put in a stack, what they're going to do with them. So if you haven't heard anything back probably in a week or so, then you can go and just say, hey, just wanted to see if you saw this. I understand that you're busy, and does that answer the question? Okay. Dawn is asking, should I stick to just one link in the email like I do with my email list, or is multiple links okay? I think multiple links is okay. You just want to be very clear what each link is for. I wouldn't get too crazy where you have, 10 links happening in your in there. I don't know exactly why you're needing multiple links. But if like, this is my catalog, this is my line sheet, like if those happen to be in different places, then that's fine. Go with that. Does that help? Are you with me, Dawn? Yes, those, and I was thinking an email list for shops. Oh, gotcha. So when you're sending an email to a shop, yeah, I think that's fine. Like, I just make it clear, like, here's a link with the one product I'm highlighting, right? And there's a nice picture and they see the product. I definitely think, for store owners like that, you can be a lot more visual than I feel like sometimes the advice that's given for what a newsletter should look like. but yeah, I feel like shop owners are a lot more methodical and intentional in how they consume information. You don't want to overwhelm. Like I said, like 10 is probably too much, but I feel like here's the new item, here's our best-selling item, and here's, some other thing that you want to throw in there that's like a good seasonal item. All of those things I think are great to highlight in a newsletter like that. Does that help? All right, you guys. Let me get you the link to the Facebook group so that you guys can go in and find the link that I mentioned that I posted about the article about pitching to stores and everything, which I thought was kind of interesting. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to ask them in the Facebook group as well too. We'd love to have you in there. Oh, Shanna has a question, thought, perhaps. Oh, Shanna says, I'm hoping it's Shanna. Repitching as the season changes. Yes, I think that is so important that, if you have new stuff to show, obviously if you don't have new stuff to show or your stuff is no longer relevant or whatever, or isn't relevant to the new season, it probably will not make as much sense. But yes, as the season changes, or especially as you get close to when people are putting their holiday orders in, if you've already pitched before that time, then you can go ahead and start doing that too. Do like another little nudge. Dawn says, that is what I was thinking, Shanna, for my email list. It will be an easy way to contact them all at once. Yeah, I think that's a good thing too. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We are short and sweet today after going long the other few sessions. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the Facebook group. Bye, everybody.